We suck again!
Alright, well, it's not good news on the whole. Tides of Torment's being delayed. A lot of y'all saw that coming. Sounds like October is the earliest that it shall land upon our shores, which is a whole bunch of crabby dingleberries, I'm not gonna lie. But there's still some interesting elements worth discussing here. High Elves and Sealord Aislinn are confirmed, so the DLC is indeed Slaanesh, Norsca, and the Azure, with a distinctly nautical theme rounding out that final faction. Siege improvements are coming soon to testing grounds. Tomb Kings and Lizardmen are getting some quality of life improvements in August, which I imagine revolves around their research trees, their tech trees, and probably the geomantic web. Recruitment for the Tomb Kings, especially looking a little bit sad after the Beastmen and Chaos Dwarf content updates. And I would like to see some love for Khalida. I like that her star position is so goddamn hard, but there's some weird anti-synergies going on with her general combat performance in early game, and the fact that she's supposed to buff range lords, but yet needs to run into melee to do anything. She doesn't have a range attack. There's little stuff like that that I would consider to be quality of life improvements. Would love to see her get a little bit of touching up. But Creative Assembly are talking about new One Lord packs and different formats to help plug the gaps between these larger content drops moving into the future, and dropped a major hint on who this first character will be and which faction she will be representing. There's a true behemoth of a DLC slated for some time next year that will be revealed at the 25th anniversary showcase in December. Gonna be something big. More on that in a moment. But let's talk Tides of Torment. Ultimately, it sounds like CA have decided it just isn't where they want it to be. They feel like it's a market step down from Thrones of Decay or Omens of Destruction in its current form, and that if they're only releasing one major DLC this year anyway, it needs to hit and hit hard, which has kind of been the main benefit and drawback of these 3 Lord packs, that they take forever to make, they cost more to produce, and it's a bigger financial hit for the company and much larger problem if it doesn't sell well. The trade-off being they're a hell of a lot better than Queen and the Crone or Grim and the Grave ever were back in the day. But we really have come a long way in terms of Lord-specific mechanics and unit quality compared to those early days of the trilogy. But this will be one of, if not the longest droughts between DLCs since the launch of this trilogy, even if it lands in October, and it sounds like that isn't a guarantee. It could still be coming in like November or December. Not sure I see that happening, but hell, we just got second delay, why not a third, right? As usual, never happy to hear about these kinds of things. They've been a common trend, delays, throughout much of this game's life cycle. Obviously, they're always frustrating, if not entirely unexpected. But the alternative is releasing something shitty way too early, and, well, we've seen how that goes, right? It's unequivocally worse. If I could rewind the clock back and change their approach to Warhammer 3 in totality, it would probably have been better to stick with the smaller 2-Lord format every 4 or 5 months than tackle these big-ass drops that they've been doing over the last 2 years, because it does seem like that extra work adds a disproportionate amount of extra time on top of their already very long cycles, but it's hard to say how much of that is still just reverberations from hyenas and the shakeups and other internal bullshit the company's undergone in the last few years. And honestly, there is no guarantee they would have been able to hit those shorter deadlines for smaller packs anyway, so ultimately it is what it is, right? I don't want to get all like rose-tinted nostalgia here. There have been some really good patches in the last year and a half, free ones, and honestly I think that's something that a lot of us are kind of overlooking a little bit. It's like paid content is great and all, but free stuff that improves base game races and all that is just as, if not more important for the overall health of the game, and I don't really see the point in overlooking that element of it. Those patches have been pretty damn good over the last like 1.5 years. Obviously, the Lord packs have been pretty good too. Mechanics really don't have any comparison from earlier in the trilogy, especially when you look at stuff like, Grim in the Grave, King and the Warlord, that type of thing. So I hardly think it's all doom and gloom, even if the news here is disappointing, which it very assuredly is. Apparently, they are aware of the overall problem that these long tails on DLC cycles are having, and they're actively looking to introduce new DLC formats that focus on a single lord and faction. And they actually dropped a massive hint on who that first character is going to be. She's someone near and dear to your blood. That is a quote directly from the devs. Genevieve, baby! Famous Black Library character. No, I mean, it actually could be. Like, that kind of does fit with the theme here. It'd be kind of funny if they did go for Genevieve, but they know people have wanted Neferata for a really long time. She's one of my favorite characters in the setting. It's likely, although not guaranteed, that's who they're hinting at here. A vampire count single Lord pack helps deal with the logjam this faction's currently suffering from, but it also basically deconfirms the Bloodlines idea, where we get like Usharan or Vorag for Strigoi, Nephi for Lamians, Wallach Harkin for Blood Dragons, and Wasorin or Zacharias the Everliving for the Necrarchs. It was a DLC I really did want to see, but it also wasn't very realistic. If you're only doing one DLC a year, you can't make 4 lords for one single faction, a game 1 faction at that. It just doesn't make sense from a business perspective. It's actually just kind of a recipe for disaster from the more casual point of view, because the appeal of these 3 or 4 lord packs is that there's something for everybody. And if you're only doing one, you gotta make sure that everybody is appeased by it in some way, shape, or form. If you don't like Nurgle in Thrones of Decay, you just go for the Dwarf stuff or the Empire stuff and vice versa. But in a Champions of Chaos style Lord pack, which is looking more and more like a one-time thing now, if you don't like vampire counts or undead, well, you're shit out of luck. You probably don't buy it, and that might not be something CA can afford right now. So I do think the single Lord packs are a great idea. It's been tossed around as a potential avenue for many years at this point. I would not mind seeing a shift to smaller and more frequent DLCs moving into next year after this one behemoth that is coming. What that is, we do not know yet, but you can probably take a guess. They're calling it essentially the biggest pack ever created for this trilogy, which narrows it down quite substantially, I would think. Could be faction related, but no matter how you slice it, Dogs of War would never fit that billing of being the biggest. Like 85% of their roster is literal reskins, and I will stand by my viewpoint that Dogs of War, in my opinion, is not like the hypest thing they could do right now. So if it was a new race, it would have to be like Koresh in the Pawn type of thing, and that feels a bit kooky at this point in time. Possible, but kooky. I'll let y'all make the judgment on what you think it is, but I definitely know what I think it is it's the only thing that could combine the big sellers that are still left standing into one big content drop. Crux of the matter is, if you've seen Margin Call, the music is slowing right now, not stopping, which may not exactly assuage your fears, because in that movie, the Big Dick CEO, played by Jeremy Irons, ultimately decides that the music has indeed stopped and that they have to nuke the company's relationships just so they can survive. But in this situation, I really do think the music is just slowing and not grinding to a halt. As I've said before, I do not believe the end is nigh for this trilogy. As long as people continue buying new content packs when they come out, they will continue selling them, and there's really nothing to prevent them from continuing to make these well into the future. There are some incredibly cool characters and units from Warhammer Fantasy Battle that are still outstanding and will be for a while, particularly if we're doing one goddamn DLC a year. So while I hate delays and hate what it means for content creation, ultimately it's much more important that what gets sold is ready to launch and is worth that money when it's ready to go. And it sounds like that's the plan here. They're going to take the extra time they need to make sure the product is good before it ships, which is maybe not fun, but probably a good thing for the game's longevity in the long run, especially if we want to see support for this game 2, 3, 4 years down the road. More Tides of Torment news in August, DLC launch in October or November. In the meantime, might need to find some other games to play.